Everyone thinks a sluggish Toyota engine means old age or worn out parts. The real culprit is almost never what you are told at the dealership. It is years of hidden carbon and deposits quietly choking fuel and air, draining power mile by mile. This choking inside the engine shows up as poor response and lost smoothness. Nearly every symptom owners blame on normal wear is actually mechanical suffocation that is fixable. Hardly anyone talks about how or why. If your Toyota does not feel like it did when it was new, you're about to find out what is really happening under the hood, and exactly what is stealing that legendary smoothness. Fuel injectors work like the precision nozzles of your engine. Their job is to spray fuel as a fine mist, evenly distributed into each cylinder. When this spray is perfect, fuel burns completely, power feels crisp, and every drop is used the way Toyota engineers intended. But over time, sometimes as early as 30,000 miles, and often by 100,000 miles, tiny deposits form inside the injector tip and around the pintle. These deposits are not visible from the outside, but they start changing the shape and quality of the spray. Instead of a clean, even mist, the fuel begins to dribble or shoot in uneven streams. Imagine a spray bottle that has been left dirty. The nozzle clogs, and instead of a wide, fine mist, you get a weak stream that misses half the surface. The same thing happens inside the engine. This distortion in spray pattern leads to incomplete combustion. Some cylinders get too much fuel, others not enough. The result is a rough, idle, uneven power, and a drop in miles per gallon that most drivers chalk up to age. In reality, the engine computer tries to compensate, but it cannot fix a physical blockage. Lab tests and shop records show ultrasonic cleaning can restore injector spray quality by 25 to 40%, snapping the pattern back to factory specification. That is why so many Toyotas regain smoothness and power after a proper injector service. This simple restoration can reverse years of lost efficiency in a single afternoon. Internal combustion is all about balance. When injectors are clean and atomization is sharp, combustion is quick, complete, and consistent. But when deposits distort the spray, the entire process falls out of sync. It is wasted fuel, lost power, and a sluggishness that no amount of new spark plugs or air filters can solve. That is why, before blaming sensors or airflow, the story starts with the injectors, the unsung heroes, or the silent saboteurs of your Toyota's performance. Every Toyota engine breathes through a single gate, the throttle body. This is the plate that opens and closes every time you press the gas pedal, controlling exactly how much air the engine can draw in. When the throttle body is clean, air flows smoothly past the plate and into the intake manifold, letting the engine respond instantly and idle quietly. But over tens of thousands of miles, a thin rim of carbon forms around the edge of the throttle plate and the bore. This buildup is made of soot and sticky oil vapors that settle every time the engine cools down, especially if most trips are short or in heavy traffic. Think of the throttle body like your own windpipe. Even a small blockage makes breathing feel labored. The carbon ring does not have to be thick to cause problems. Just a few microns of buildup is enough to disturb the flow of air, creating turbulence as it squeezes past the plate. This disrupts the engine's ability to measure and balance the air-fuel mixture, leading to unstable idle and a throttle response that feels slow or lazy. The engine is not broken. It is just starved for air, forced to work harder for every breath. Drivers often notice the change as a subtle hesitation when pulling away from a stop, or an idle that wavers instead of settling smoothly. Some describe it as the engine feeling heavy or unwilling. In reality, the throttle body is quietly choking off performance, robbing the engine of the clean airflow it needs for crisp combustion. The effect is most obvious in Toyotas because of their tight engineering tolerances. Just a little extra resistance at the throttle plate can throw off the entire balance. Restoring clean airflow and accurate breathing makes a dramatic difference in how the engine feels. And until that airflow is restored, the engine will continue to feel like it is working against an invisible hand. Every calculation your Toyota engine makes starts with one number. How much air is coming in? That number comes from the mass airflow sensor, called MAF. It sits in the intake path, reading the air that passes by. The MAF job is simple. translate moving air into an electrical signal so the engine computer can decide exactly how much fuel to add. When the sensor is clean, the signal is crisp and accurate. But even a thin film of dust, oil vapor, or pollen can throw off its readings. The change is tiny, sometimes just a fraction of a volt, but the consequences are anything but minor. A dirty MAF sensor starts to misjudge the amount of air entering the engine. The engine computer, trusting that data, adjusts fuel delivery based on a false reading. If the sensor says there is less air than there really is, the engine computer cuts fuel and the engine runs lean. If it overestimates, the engine floods itself with extra gas and runs rich. Both scenarios chip away at performance. Lean mixtures cause hesitation and weak acceleration. Rich mixtures waste fuel and clog catalytic converters. In Toyotas, this sensitivity is amplified by the brand's tight engineering. Even a small error in airflow measurement can mean the difference between a smooth idle and a rough, stumbling engine. Rough idle complaints, sudden drops in fuel economy, and unexplained sluggishness are often traced back to a contaminated MAS. Shop records show that in up to 70% of cases where a Toyota comes in for rough running, the culprit is a dirty sensor, not a failed part. The sensor is covered in invisible grime. The engine is not getting old, it is getting bad information. The MAF acts like the narrator for the engine story, and when it starts to lie, the whole performance falls out of tune. Restoring a clean airflow signal brings the entire system back into balance, and lets the engine run as its designers intended. Toyota's reputation for engines that run well past 200,000 miles is not luck. It is the result of an engineering philosophy built on precision. Every component, from the injectors to the throttle and sensors, is designed with tight tolerances. This level of detail makes Toyotas unusually sensitive to even minor changes in fuel and airflow. When a Toyota starts to feel slow or rough, it is rarely because the engine is worn out. More often, it is because those small tolerances have been compromised by deposits or buildup, throwing the whole system out of balance. One of the most distinctive features in many modern Toyota engines is the D4S fuel system. Unlike pure direct injection systems that spray fuel straight into the combustion chamber, D4S uses both direct injection and port injection. The port injectors spray fuel onto the backs of the intake valves, helping to wash away carbon and oil vapors that would otherwise stick and harden over time. This dual approach means Toyotas are less prone to heavy intake valve carbon buildup that plagues many other brands, especially those relying only on direct injection. But there is a catch. This system demands that both sets of injectors remain clean and precise. If either side develops deposits, the benefit disappears, and the engine's responsiveness drops off quickly. The reason small fixes, like cleaning a throttle body or restoring a MAF sensor, can transform the way a Toyota drives comes down to that same precision. When everything is clean and calibrated, the engine responds instantly, idles smoothly, and delivers the fuel economy Toyota is known for. Even a few microns of carbon or a thin film of oil can disrupt this balance, creating symptoms that feel like aging, but are actually just a loss of that original tightness. In a Toyota, restoring this harmony brings back the crisp, eager feel that drivers remember from day one. A Camry pulls up to a stoplight, its engine barely audible, but the driver feels the difference. Sluggish acceleration, a sense that the car is working harder than it should. Under the hood, the culprit is often a mass airflow sensor coated with a film of dust and oil vapor, sending just enough wrong information to the computer to throw off the whole fuel mixture. The Camry's reputation for smoothness is built on precise airflow, and even a slight error here turns every green light into a slow crawl. A few streets away, a Corolla owner watches the gas gauge drop faster than it used to. The car still starts on the first try, but highway mileage is down by several miles per gallon. In this case, it is not the air, but the fuel delivery. Injector deposits and a tired fuel pump combine to rob the engine of its efficiency. Instead of a fine mist, the fuel arrives in uneven bursts. The Corolla's legendary thrift slips away, not from age, but from the slow, silent buildup inside the fuel system. That quiet loss of efficiency adds up over time. A RAV4 sits at a red light, its idle rough enough to rattle the steering wheel. Here, the trouble starts with carbon choking the throttle body and a clogged exhaust gas recirculation passage, both common in city-driven SUVs. The engine struggles to breathe, and the computer cannot smooth out the idle. The fix is mechanical, not magical. When the buildup is removed, the idle settles right back to factory calm. That return to a steady idle tells the real story. Then there is the Tacoma, a workhorse that hesitates when asked to accelerate. The cause often hides in plain sight: a vacuum leak where a brittle hose has cracked, or a dirty mass airflow sensor misreading airflow on a dusty job site. The engine stumbles, then catches up, leaving the driver guessing whether it is time for a major repair. Each of these stories points to a different route, but the pattern is the same. Performance loss that looks like aging, yet almost always traces back to something that can be cleaned, restored, or replaced. For Toyota owners, these are not mysteries, they are clues waiting for someone to connect the dots. 4 myths keep Toyota owners locked into the same cycle of performance loss. The first is the idea that Toyotas do not need maintenance. Just drive, change the oil once in a while, and the engine will outlast everything else. But history tells a different story. In the early 2000s, Toyota faced a wave of engine failures tied directly to neglected oil changes. The so-called sludge crisis led to class action lawsuits and extended warranties, all traced back to thickened oil that choked engines, stuck piston rings, and seized bearings. Reliability is built on upkeep, not luck. The second myth claims fuel system cleaners are a waste of money. Independent lab tests and fleet data say otherwise. Quality additives, especially those used with top-tier gasoline, have been shown to reduce deposits and improve fuel atomization by 5 to 10%, enough to recover lost miles per gallon and smooth out a rough idle. While miracle claims are exaggerated, legitimate products make a measurable difference, especially when used before problems become severe. Another stubborn belief is that engines just get weak with age, and there is nothing to be done about it. But teardown after teardown reveals the truth. Most Toyotas that feel tired are suffering from carbon and varnish, not worn-out metal. Clean away the buildup, and the original power often comes right back. Shop records and dyno tests show engines regaining 10 to 20% of lost output after a thorough cleaning. Hard numbers, not wishful thinking. The last myth is that rough running and poor economy are just normal for high-mileage cars. Fleet studies and owner reports prove otherwise. Toyotas that receive regular maintenance, oil and filter changes, injector and sensor cleaning, keep their edge well past 200,000 miles. The difference is not age, it is attention. These myths are comfortable, but they blind owners to simple fixes hiding in plain sight. The facts are clear: neglect, not time, is the real enemy of Toyota performance. Every extra gallon burned by a sluggish engine comes straight out of your wallet. When a Toyota loses just 2 miles per gallon because of dirty injectors, a fouled throttle body, or a mass airflow sensor that is reading incorrectly, that is not just numbers on a dash, that is real money. Over a year, that drop means buying an extra 5 or 6 tanks of gas, sometimes more depending on how much you drive. At today's prices, that is easily $200 or more wasted just from letting buildup linger. But the cost does not stop at the pump. Running rich or misfiring because of poor atomization or bad airflow can overheat the catalytic converter. Once that part fails, the repair bill jumps to over $1,000. Sometimes twice as much if the converter is integrated into the exhaust manifold as it is on many Toyotas. These are preventable expenses. Most drivers do not see the link between a rough idle and a big repair bill. The math is simple: minor inefficiencies add up, and ignoring them means paying more every mile. Engines that cross the 300,000 mile mark almost never get there by accident. Behind every high mileage Toyota, there's a quiet rhythm, a pattern of care that repeats year after year. Oil changes happen right on schedule, every 5,000 to 7,500 miles, keeping the moving parts clean and slippery. Air filters get swapped every 15,000 miles, never left to choke on dust or pollen. Spark plugs, often overlooked, are replaced around the 100,000 mile mark, so each cylinder fires with the same crisp timing it had on day one. Fluids such as coolant, transmission fluid, and brake fluid are checked and topped off before problems start. It is not about fancy upgrades or chasing the latest additive. It is about sticking to the basics over and over without skipping a beat. The difference between a tired engine and one that still feels eager after 2 decades is not some secret trick. It is the consistency of these habits, repeated whether the car is new or has already seen 100 oil changes. That is the real edge long-lasting Toyotas share. In the Bay, the results speak for themselves. Time after time, a Toyota rolls in with a rough, idle, tired acceleration, or poor gas mileage. After targeted cleaning of the fuel injectors, the throttle body, and the mass airflow sensor, the difference is immediate and measurable. Dyno runs show horsepower creeping back up by 10 to 15%, sometimes more. On the road, drivers notice the change before they even get out of the parking lot. That sluggish Camry suddenly pulls strong again. The Corolla's idle evens out, and the RAV4 stops shaking at stoplights. The numbers back it up. Fuel economy climbs by 2, sometimes 3 miles per gallon. These are not one-off miracles. They are patterns that show up across hundreds of Toyotas year after year. Shop records are full of before and after data. Test drives confirm what the numbers say. Engines that felt old and tired start running like they just left the factory. No guesswork, no wishful thinking. Just hard evidence, repeatable every time the basics are brought back into balance. That is the reality you see on the shop floor, not just in the manuals or the marketing. Right now, millions of Toyotas lose efficiency and power, not from age. It happens because owners neglect the basics engineers designed for. As fuel prices rise and repair costs climb, ignoring these hidden inefficiencies means more wasted money with every mile. The truth is simple. A well-maintained engine outlasts expectations. Longevity is not luck. It is the result of what you do next. Share your experience below, and keep your Toyota running strong.